I made a list this week of the number of times I've had lunches with men, and it's over 1,000. Over 1,000 times I've had the opportunity to sit across the table from a man and talk about what's going on in their lives. And I've observed two things. Number one, I've never met a man that doesn't genuinely love his family and people and want to be a better person. I've never met a man who didn't want that. But second, I've never met a man that could actually explain what was going on inside of him. That there was just a great sense of, forest for the trees, that everybody else in their life, your wife, your kids, your friends, can see you objectively and the warts and all, things that you need to work on. But it's so difficult for us to be able to recognize what's going on. Let me give you an example of this. When I was 16, I started this thing that I do to this day, is that whenever there's something I really need to think about, I'll get in the car and I'll just drive. Now, I'll go for an hour, just driving. My goal is to see every street in this area. I just drive and I'm praying for people and I'm thinking and I'm listening to music. And that started as soon as I could drive. And I just remember I was 16. There was something going on. I don't remember what it was. It was just very painful and confusing. And I asked my dad if I could have the car. And he said no, that they're going somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, but we have two cars. No, son, I don't know. And so he goes on. He's like, I'm not going to give you the car. Have you guys ever had this conversation with one of your kids? And you're like, they want the car, you don't want to give them the car. So my mom and dad get into the car, they're pulling out of the garage, and I just remember feeling so much rage, running out into the garage and spitting on the windshield and then swearing at him and then going back into the house. A few minutes later, the door slowly opens. My dad comes in, and he said, son, you had hate in your eyes. I've never seen hate in your eyes for me. Tell me, what's going on? And I'll never forget what I said at 16. This family never talks about anything. We never talk about anything. All we do is we shove it down, and we act like everything's fine. Now, my dad, based on what a jerk his dad was, my dad was thinking of how great a father he was because he didn't come in, maybe as he should have, and immediately kill me for spitting on his windshield. But the whole time, I'm wanting him to sit down with me and to say, hey, what's going on? What are you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? And instead, he just shook his head and left. That right there, from the time I was born until now, describes the difficulty that I have with the dad that I love so much. My dad was awesome, but he left an imprint on me. Do you believe that about your dad? Your dad left an imprint. No matter how awesome he was, we leave imprint. Do you believe that? For those of us who are fathers in the room, you leave an imprint on your kids. Some of it good, some of it bad. Proverbs 20, verse 5 says, the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. And that's what we as men, I'm telling you, 1,000 lunches, all the times I've been around women, we've just never had someone have the ability to reach down into those deep waters. And as Kaleo says, right? Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve? Oh, we get what we deserve. And way down we go, 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 go. When my dad didn't sit down and have a conversation with me and attempt to pull that out, what he did inadvertently, without knowing, is the same thing every father has ever done that didn't provide the child what they needed. Lick their thumb and put a smudge on my glasses. Do you know that when you were born, your dad places a pair of glasses on you. These are the glasses through which you see the world, and you understand yourself and other people that are around you. When you get them, they're spotless and clean. But then our dads come along and they go to the next slide, I put a little smudge on them. Now, my wife's computer screen looks like this. Drives me nuts, right? And I'm assuming nobody likes glasses that are like this, right? You're gonna go and you're gonna clean them. I'm very particular with sunglasses and that sort of thing. But our fathers, no matter how great they were, put a smudge on our glasses. And what happened is that we interpret the world around us with these smudges. Go to the next photo, right? Can you imagine a pair of glasses with a dark smudge on them? And everywhere you look, something feels off. The trees look ugly. That sign is crooked. This person seems wrong. Now, is it that the tree is ugly, the sign is off, and people seem wrong? Or is it that you're looking through glasses that have a smudge on them? Okay? Smudges are the imprints that we carry from our fathers that cause us to blame the world for what we haven't owned in ourselves. I remember sitting down in counseling. Karen, counselor, I sit down. Well, she asked a great question. Why are you here? And I was ready. I had an entire list. This person and that, and this happened, and abuse and neglect and trauma, and blah, 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 blah. She's listening to this whole thing for 20 minutes. It was so eloquent. It was a great soliloquy, okay? All right. And I said, so what do you think? She said, oh, it's your father. I'm like, shut up. This is why counseling is BS, man. Come on. She said, no, you don't see it. Can you go to the glasses back? Bring me the glasses back here. Right? Oh, it's this, it's that, it's the job, it's the world, it's the church, it's people, it's health, blah, 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 blah. And if you just cleaned it off and you were able to see what I can see, she was saying, it's obvious it's your dad. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. So last week I asked you the question, why are you the way you are? Go ahead and look at the person next to you and ask them that question. Why are you the way you are? And then look at them and say, you are such a disappointment. What I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the things that we're not aware of, the deep waters, okay? So, as Carl Jung says, unless we make the conscious, it will direct our lives and we'll call it fate. And here's what's at stake for men. This is why it's so important that we talk about this. Viktor Frankl says, when a man can't find a deep sense of meaning, he distracts himself with pleasure. And what's at stake here is not just the development and the maturation of men, but all of the people that have to deal with us and have a relationship with us. We're in this series called The 5 Marks of a Man. Last week we talked about how boys live day to day and men have a vision for their lives. And I told you that every single time we talk, we're going to have a female on staff come up and give a reflection. Not like a rebuttal, but sort of like a reflection on how this might affect women and questions that you ought to think about. And so we're going to do that again today. I want to say the book, The 5 Marks of the Man by Brian Tome, I thought it missed the mark this week. So I rewrote the second mark of it. And I wanted to say this, right? The second mark is boys live day to day. Okay, boys look for someone to blame. Men take responsibility for their lives. So my goal by the end of the talk is I want to talk about what you need to take responsibility for as a man. I want to be able to help the women in the room understand what it's like living with a man who hasn't taken responsibility for the areas of his life and how that affects you. And then what I want to talk about is how we move forward from that. The greatest burden, the great spiritual writer Dallas Willard said, the greatest burden a man can place on others is to refuse to carry his own life. Immaturity always seeks rescue. Maturity accepts cost. Responsibility is the price of becoming real. Turn in your Bibles to Romans chapter 7. For those of you who are new, we have a church app. You can go to the App Store at CCV Philadelphia. You download the app, and there's a Bible tab there. So the text will be up there. I want to talk about a verse that is going to upend a lot of your theology, the way that you believe sin works in your life. And so this might be hard for some of you that grew up in churches that didn't teach the Bible, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about a passage that's really going to help you. I want you to follow this, and I want you to see the humor in it and how honest the Apostle Paul's being. Go to the next slide. All right. The Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 7, verse 15, I do not understand what I do. Women, do you have a man in your life who doesn't understand what he does? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That meant we have a difficulty understanding what we do, okay? That's a given, all right? I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, right? How many of us are like that? How many of us have, well, we believe our lives ought to go this way, and we ought to be doing this, and we just don't do it. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do, I end up doing the thing I don't even like. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good, that God's right, okay? Go to the next slide. As it is, and this is important, it is no longer I myself who do it, meaning sinning against God, sinning against ourselves, sinning against other people. But it is sin living in me. For I know that the good itself does not dwell in me, that is in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. My gosh, if that should be taught to every single man who ever becomes a human being. There are a couple things about this passage I want to point out. Number one, Paul uses the Greek word for sin is the Greek word hamartia, which means to miss the mark. Okay, to miss the mark, here's a good example of this right here. What are you shooting for, right? The red. But you miss the mark. And it's the word that the Apostle Paul uses for sin is not an egregious violation against God, and I'm going to do it in your face, suck it. It is, I'm trying, and I'm not able to do it. Now, for those of you who are parents, if your kids were really trying to do something, but they weren't able to do it, do you get angry at them, punish them, discipline them? Of course not. You're like, hey, you're trying. Just keep it up, keep at it. And the word sin, hamartia, means to miss this mark, okay? Here's the second image that I want you to have, is that Paul personifies sin as something living inside of us. Now, personification, let's all go back to 10th grade English grammar class. Personification is what? Personification is when, something living inside of, go to the next one. Go to the next one. Here we go. Personification is when we turn a thing into someone. Right, you ever read in the Bible, wisdom calls out. Does wisdom have a mouth? No, wisdom doesn't have a mouth to call out. You're turning wisdom into a person. How many times have you talked to someone that is in recovery and they're like, it's the addiction that's speaking. The addiction addiction doesn't have a mouth. It's not a person. But what we do to help us understand the mysterious power that it has is we personify the sin. All right. I'm going to draw you a picture. Those of you who are new, I was at advanced art in 8th grade. This is a man. Okay? This area is the soul. This is the internal part of us. When I say men don't understand what's going on in here, this is exactly what I'm talking about. What's happening here is this is made up of the past. This is made up of parents. This is made up of, I don't have time, generational trauma. This is the environment. This is all this stuff that makes up who you are when you meet this man, okay? Now, what the Bible is saying in Romans chapter 7 is that this soul, this man has been given, a pair of glasses. And the glasses here, that's pretty good. Glasses have smudges on them. And what happens is, when the man is looking through the glasses, there are smudges to keep him from really understanding what's going on and to misinterpret, right? So this is a common experience. For those of you who are married, you remember the day that you realized that the man that you married is not the man you thought he was. He's just not. He didn't understand who he was. And so once all the lovely stuff happened and the honeymoon ended and you got down to brass tacks, the real man came out. And you're like, how did this happen? How did this guy become so blah, 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 okay? And what I'm saying is, how he became so blah, 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 is what Romans 7 is talking about. Hamartia is sin, involves all of this stuff. It involves all of that. And unless you understand, as Carl Jung says, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. So what I want to do is I want to talk about why this junk is going on in the soul of a man and woman, okay? I'm going to give you a quiz right now. I'm going to help you identify the type of father you grew up with. And I'm going to help you identify how that affected you. Now, I'm going to ask you to take a risk because some of you are sitting next to your fathers. Some of you do not want to say anything that disappoints your fathers. But I need every man in the room, right now that's a father, I need you to raise your hand, put it up in the air, do it or I'm coming out there. Look around. We are collectively telling you, be honest with us. Be honest with us. We're man enough for you to be honest with us. And so I'm going to give a quiz. There are 6 fathers. I'm going to show you the biblical archetypes and the psychological ramifications. I'm going to show the 6 fathers, and I want you to pick out, number 1, this is the father I grew up with. And number 2, if you're a man, this is the father either I am or I'm becoming. Okay? Now, these first 3 fathers basically take away our power and our agency. Okay? And I'll explain that as we get into that. Number 1, the walking on eggshells father. This is the father, your dad was volatile, unpredictable, and emotionally unsafe. Think of King Saul. King Saul is tender at one moment, writing poetry, singing. The next moment, he's violent. Mood swifts. Extreme mood swifts. That says it all right there, right? Calm one moment, explosive the next. The way he put a smudge on your glasses Why would you do that? Now look what you did. Look what you started. Can you just leave it alone? I can't deal with this right now. Silence felt dangerous for you. And how it felt growing up is that acting felt risky. You got this walking on eggshells when you're in the house. However that happened, how your dad formed you to miss the mark in your life, go to the next one, is I became afraid to take initiative in relationships. Some of you are here today and you're really afraid. You're in a meeting at work, you're at the house, and you're thinking something, and you're afraid to bring it up. You're afraid to share it. That's what a walking on eggshells dad does. Number two, the dominating father. Your dad's controlling, overriding, always right, very rigid. There is a plan, you're going to follow it. There is a process, you're not doing this, you're falling short. I have very clear rules for how you're going to dress and what you're going to do and how you're going to act, and dominating, right? Think of King Rehoboam in the Old Testament. Made decisions without explanations, interrupted, corrected you mid-sentence. An authority was something that was external, it was never shared. And the smudge, because I said so, don't talk back. You don't know what you're talking about. I'll handle this, right? Your thoughts felt irrelevant. Silence felt smarter than honesty. And so how my dad formed me to miss the mark, the dominating father, go to the next one. I became afraid to stand up and use my voice. I'm afraid, I just don't want to share it. Your agency was taken away from you. Your power was taken away from you. Number three, the gentle but powerless father. Think of the priest Eli and his two wicked sons. Your dad was kind, safe, unable to confront, and not powerful. Very nice, very kind, not powerful. What he did is he avoided conflict at all costs. Maybe he avoided conflict with you, trying to keep the peace. Everyone, disruption in the house, lets other dominate situations, modeled goodness without strength, and the smudge. Let's not make a big deal about this. It's not worth it. Just be the bigger person. We'll let it go. How he formed me to miss the mark was I became afraid to have a backbone and to confront others. You have an opinion about something at work. You're in this relationship with this person. And you're like, I know that what they're doing is wrong. I just don't want to say anything. Those are the first three fathers. They take away your agency. So I want you to make a mental note. And I just want to say, usually there's a combination of two. So those are the first three. Here are the next three. These fathers create a sense of unmet need and emptiness. So number four is the distant father. Part of this was with my dad, right? So your dad's physically present. Everybody in the world thinks your dad's awesome. But the distant father is someone that's there, but emotionally, there's a wall. Is that you? Are you able to recognize and have a conversation and to bring, rarely asked questions of you, stayed busy, distracted, quiet, provided material things, but not relationally, didn't notice emotional shifts in the room. He said, you're fine, you'll figure it out. The smudge, tell me what you're feeling. No, you never heard that. I want to know. Tell me more about never. I'm here. How it felt growing up, needing felt pointless. You learned self-sufficiency early. Many of you with distant fathers remember this feeling of, my gosh, I feel like I'm an adult. I'm 12 years old. And I'm more of an adult. And I want you to write this down. How your dad formed you, that's a distant father, you're left with a deep sense of empty longing in your life. And it creates a smudge through which you look through the world. Number 5, the absent father. Think of David's son Absalom. Never has time with his dad. Your dad was gone, inconsistent, unreachable. Your father may have passed away. Your father may have left. Or worse, your father stayed, but in his heart and in his mind, he was gone. He was preoccupied with something else. Work, something else going on in their lives. Remember, if men don't find meaning in their lives, they will distract themselves with what? Pleasure, football, baseball, going to the bar, getting a car, fishing, hunting, make the list. The absent father puts the smudge on the glasses and says, hey, I'll call you, I'll be there next time. Something came up. Connection felt unreliable. You craved approval, but when you got it, you distrusted it. How my dad formed me to miss the mark, I was left with a deep sense of mistrust. Some of you are in relationships right now with a man, and your father put a smudge on your glasses, and you just don't trust people. And that's just become, you're like, I just don't trust people. I don't confide in people. And the last one was primarily where my dad was, the performance father. Think of Jacob in the book of Genesis with his 2 sons. Your dad was there. Your dad could even be awesome, but was critical, maybe at times, not so much by what he said, but by what he didn't say. He was evaluative. He was never satisfied. He praised achievement, not effort. Notice flaws. If my dad was here right now and I said, you were a performance father, he would be like, bro, what? First of all, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And he would say, who talks like that, right? That's what he would say next. He would say, what are you talking about? And I would say, bro, I immediately, in 6th grade, you talked about Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas. What position did I go for? Championship game, I was the quarterback. And then I went out for track. I became the county champion in track. In high school, I became quarterback. We went to the state championship. I became a baseball player. You liked pitchers? I became a pitcher. I got a baseball scholarship. I don't know. Oh, well then, I became a Christian. Then I wanted to start the biggest church in the history of the world. I wanted to go to school, so I went to, I'm going to school in Princeton. Like, how do you not see this? And he'll say, I never told you to do any of that. And he doesn't realize he doesn't have to say anything. His example and his lack and inability to communicate feelings, the only time I got something out of him was when I was blowing him away with some accomplishment. How my dad formed me to miss the mark, I was left with a deep sense of self-loathing. If you are here and you do not have strong self-esteem, all right, so I'm going to show you the 6, okay? Go ahead, if you can bring up the 6 right here. I need you to lean over, and I need you to tell the person next to you, which one are you? Take a moment and do that. Which one did you experience? When we talk about men taking responsibility for their lives, number 1, men in the room, those of you who had fathers, which one was your dad? Take responsibility and point it out. My dad was perfect. Oh, now this is a whole nother issue. Now, which one were you? If you're a dad here, which one do you believe which track are you going to go down unless God really brings out what's going on internally and helps you see it? Now, there are two ways to basically take responsibility. Number one is to acknowledge. We need to acknowledge what we experienced. Listen, the most loving thing you can do is to tell your dad, I love you. I realize the difficulty that went on in your life, but growing up, I didn't receive this. Do you see that? Can you acknowledge that? Hopefully you have a dad that can. But then second, the most important part of this process is grieving. I remember I'm in a counseling session. She's so good, and she's so much smarter than I am. She basically lays these traps for me, and at the very end, as any good counselor will, they'll just let you ramble. They'll give you enough rope to hang yourself, right? Right? So we get to the end of this, and I realize, oh my gosh, as much as I love my dad and how awesome he was, I missed this. And I started weeping. And I'm talking snot dripping down the shirt, weeping. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And she said, you're finally grieving. Here's what I want you to do on the drive home, because it's an hour away. On the drive home, I just want you to ask, God, will you come and sit with me in the seat and just be with me? And she said, just allow God's presence to be with you and start to heal. I've asked Melissa Flora to come on up, and she's going to share a reflection. And do you need the stand?
I don't have any notes. So.
Okay, all right.
I had notes, and now I don't have notes. So here we are. When I think about Brian talking about taking responsibility, it's obviously not a message that's only for men. It's a message for all of us. And I think the comical part about not having notes is that I'm walking up here still unsure of what I'm processing. My parents split when I was 2 years old. I've grown up my entire life with mom, dad, stepmom, and I've balanced my entire life a performance, a polish of never making a mistake, never missing the mark, always being ready to perform for whatever reason is necessary. And I have never blamed my parents for that, truly. But I think I'm still working through it. The why. What Paul talks about in Romans, why I do what I do. I think that's just a real reflection that this processing that we are going through as we're learning about our parents, as we're talking to other men in our life and women and people that care for us, it's just learning about why. And the grace that God gives us in that is beautiful. Now, I'm lucky because a lot of kids that do come from a separated family have fractured relationships with their parents. And that's not the case for me. I go out to breakfast monthly with both my mom and my dad. And I have my dad here today. If you know my dad is loud. He is intense. He is a Vietnam vet, if that says anything. But he is also gentle and loving and has served faithfully in our children's ministry for over 20 years. So, Dad, I'd love for you to come on up here with me. Thanks, Robbie, for giving him that. Dad, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Philadelphia.
And you were one of how many kids? And how was your your childhood, when you think about a memory with your parents, is there something that comes to mind for you?
My memories of childhood were pleasant. I grew up amidst the drinking and fighting and gambling. Both my parents, mother and father, be at the corner bar, and come home late at night, only to end up in fights, man, where things get broken, and ultimately the police be called, my father would be carried away, carted away. But you know what? I'm gonna change up, miss.
I did.
I know. Listen, the hand that we're dealt and the things that we go through in our life, you can let it define you, or you can get past that and move on and realize, you know what? I'm not gonna be that. I want more for my life. I want my children to experience and feel the love that I didn't get at home in my family. Listen, you've done a pretty good job. You are a beautiful wife, you're a great mother, you're a friend to so many, and you're an example. You're an example to all you women out there that maybe don't have that hope or that belief. You give that to them. I don't know where this story fits in the realm of Brian's series, but I can tell you one thing. It's the Spirit of the Lord, man, that takes our experiences and changes them, allows us, whether they're good things that happen to us or moments that we have to take and admit and move on from and grow. Yeah. So.
And I think, Dad, you're an example of that, the generational responsibility. You know, even though I came from a divorced family, even though there were hard moments in our life, even though there were times that, you know, we may have had or still do have moments where we had a whole therapy session before we came up here on stage and talked through, you have always shown me love. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not
Definitely
perfect for my
not.
children, but you have love.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for being a dad that shows that love and that cares to break that for his children. You see, my dad wanted to give us a lot of things growing up. He wanted to give us a lot of things that we didn't have. But Dad, the best thing that you ever gave us was pointing us to Jesus.
And you know what? It certainly shows in her life. How she carries herself.
And that's why communion matters. Because Jesus came into our life to break family divides and to sit with people that are broken. And he didn't do it just to show forgiveness for our sin. He did it to create a new life for people, to create new families that will last forever. And we think about Jesus' death and his resurrection. He did that to create a foreverness that comes from the Father's love. So, Dad, before we do communion, would you mind praying for us?
I will pray. You know, thank you, Heavenly Father, that you are the perfect Father. Thank you that through Jesus, our past does not have to be the final word. Thankful that you invite us to the forever family. But not on performance, but it's on grace. And then we're going to take the bread and the cup and remind us that we belong to you. Not just for today, but forever. And in Jesus' name we pray this. Amen.
Thanks for watching today's message. Make sure to check out Brian's new book, Finding Favor, God's Blessings Beyond Health, Wealth, and Happiness. To sign up for Brian's newsletter, please go to Brian's website at brianjones.com.